All right, welcome to another episode of Not Investment Advice. We've got the NIA boys here, Trung Phan, Bilal Zaidi, and Jack Butcher, who's got a very special headset on. He's paying homage to Trung Phan episode 13 to 77. Here we go.
Wait, Jack, is that the one you told me to buy?
No, I just found this in a drawer because my headphone management system is out the window, man. All I can find on my desk is endless streams of these lightning connected Apple things. You know the ones I'm talking about?
Yeah, the ones where you have to put a wire to the wire because it doesn't work.
The Courage adapter, they call it, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't work with the Mac. The thing they also
it called
designed.
The Courage adapter?
Because when they were announcing the product, they're like, you know why we're removing the 3.5 mil jack? Courage.
You want to know what's funny? We've all made fun of them, but it turned out to be the right move. Except that apparently AirPods give you a brain cancer now.
Oh man, you can't keep saying that every week, man. Every time I get a little headache now, I'm so scared. I was in the sauna the other day about to cry.
We're on that Huberman life, man, with the wired headphones.
Oh yeah,
longevity.
Wait, is Huberman the one that's been
I'm messing about. I don't know. All these boys talking about looking after yourself, man. I'm getting the wired headphones out.
Yeah. Taking it back.
Be damned, Bilal.
Wait. It's going to be wired headphones till Bitcoin 69. That's it.
Yeah.
Standing only, wired only.
Well, let's add another layer to this running joke. This is almost episode 100, and we still haven't figured out our audio.
We're doing all right now. We got the proper mic there for Trung.
Yeah, we all
anyway,
got proper
I was
mics.
also going to say, Jack, when you put it on, you dropped the phone jacker reference. So, Trung, have we ever sent you the phone jacker clips, by the way?
Is this some UK stuff?
It's a UK
Does
show.
this stuff rate well? Can we do some analysis on if this UK stuff is killing our ratings?
But there's a classic show, and the guy would just prank call people, and there would be one where he'd be wearing this little headset in like a call center. Did you ever do a call center job? I feel like one of you must have done it.
Me?
Yeah.
No, I never did call center job. I would have been awful.
Man, I sold kitchens from a call center one time in North London. It lasted about half a day.
Bing, bing,
The script
Went off
on
script.
Selling a kitchen on the phone. That's
Insane.
crazy.
Cold calling. It would dial. Well, I'd be there wearing my suit.
What was the conversion rate?
I went off script, closed one person, and then they called me upstairs and said, you went off script. And I said, yeah, because the script isn't working.
No, but hold on. How did you close? How did you pivot into a chat about the kitchen? What did you say? I'm serious. What did you say?
No. From what I remember, I was 16 years old. So it was essentially a close was getting them to turn up to the store. It wasn't like you bought a £30,000 kitchen.
How did you do it? Answer me. How did you do it?
They automatically call a bunch of people in the local area, and you'd be like, are you in the market for a new kitchen? Which is a ridiculous concept. Like, who's in the market for a new kitchen just randomly?
No one ever thinks about that, right? I've never once thought, I could use a new kitchen today.
Dialing for dollars, bro. That is how it works. Anyway, so let's tell people what we're talking about today. It's a big social episode. Trung is going to be going ham on TikTok again. He's going to be talking about the case for banning TikTok
shit
part 2.
Needs to be banned, man. For sale. Come on.
Jack is ready for the thumbnail. It's going to be the most outrageous thumbnail on the TikTok banning. And then we're going to talk about Artifact, which is Kevin Systrom's new app. It's going to be TikTok for text. And he's the IG founder. We're going to be the Instagram founder. We're going to be talking about that. And Twitter's algorithm change, the For You page. It's basically a big social episode. But before that, real quickly, Jack, Check's NFTs, they're still in the top 10 NFTs. You just hit $12 million in secondary volume. How's it going on the Check side, mate? Quick one.
Stuff is good, yeah. I won't go all the way down into it, but we're building all the infrastructure out for the phase 2. Should be about a week away. But if you want to check out the running mega thread.
Come on, a lot of people want to know. Yeah, a lot of people want to know.
So taking the original editions, migrating them into the second phase of the art show. So taking them from these editions that are all identical into completely unique on-chain originals. And then there's some logic that exists beyond that where I think I explained the supply thing last week where it is possible to create different combinations by combining ones that you own at the edition level. So basically this is going to change the supply and all the aesthetic of the entire collection. And we've just been writing the smart contracts, building the front end, all of that stuff. So I'll come back to it and do a proper screen share and everything and explain it all when there's something to look at. But if you're interested now, go through the Twitter thread and it goes step by step, all the things that we're doing and building. So
this is straight out building in public, mate.
Yeah,
2020 style. You're putting it all out there. It's pretty cool to see, man.
Quick question. I'm not going to ask you how much money you've made from the secondary sales. I'm not asking that. My wrist has been slapped. What I'm going to ask is this,
Jack's
though.
face so good. He looks so disappointed.
We need to do a live reaction of Jack's face when I said, you know what got me hard last week? Oh my God, dude. Oh,
do you know what? I missed it as well. I'm not going to lie. No. When Jack was reacting to it, I was like, what? Is he saying it the way you said euro or gyro?
Face? No, I'm going to ask this. Jack, because you know there's still skeptics and haters. Is this something that had to be done on the blockchain?
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
It's short and sweet. All right.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's all we had to know. That's all we had to hear. All right.
So let's get into yeah. Trung's got a meme of the week. We're going to reference our boy Soren a little later.
For the listeners,
hide those DMs, bro.
There's a Twitter user named Soren Iverson, an alumni of Visualize Value. So, and also a speaker. Is that right, Jack?
That's correct.
So, shout out to Soren. I think Square and Cash App. But if you're on Twitter, you've probably seen some of his work lately. He's taking very popular consumer apps and then tweaking them a bit as a joke. So for Uber, the Uber app, he puts a hot box option. And it's called drivers that don't mind the devil's lettuce. So it looks like you can smoke in this car, a marijuana joint. But it's hilarious because he's been doing these for a bunch of apps like Uber Eats, Gmail, Apple Watch. We'll go through a couple of them later at the end of the episode. I'd love to get Jack's thoughts on how if it's a VV bar, if it meets a VV bar. I mean, Jack, does this one meet the VV bar?
Man, I think I'll go into it later in the episode, but I think he nailed this idea of finding a format and iterating on it and like showing your unique ability to communicate ideas. Like now you're seeing this meme spread. He's not the only one doing this, but I believe he was the first to do it, at least consistently at this quality. So yeah, for sure, it's an incredible idea, and it just taps into something that people are already familiar with. It's like the concepts that we've talked about before. The Virgil thing even works in like comedy, right?
The 3% rule.
Yeah. Take this thing and then put some interesting, funny spin on it, and it just captures people's imagination because they're already so familiar with this thing, and the novelty creates this massive effect. And props to Soren. He's gotten a lot of well-deserved attention as a result.
Killing it. All right, so should we move on to TikTok, boys? Because we might revisit some of Soren's posts a bit later, potentially, or on another episode. But so, Trung, you've been writing about this, and we've had the famous episode where you were calling for TikTok to be banned, essentially, but you've really gone in now even more.
I went deep on this one. This one.
So break it down for us, man. Like, we've heard from other people that they think it could even happen this year. So I guess, how would you want to lay this out? Is it more case for and against, or is it just
I'll lay out my case and you guys poke holes in it.
All right.
So this is my case. It's very simple, and it's going to get us banned from YouTube. No, it's this. Listen, China is an ideological rival to the West, right? This is not a conspiracy theory. Xi Jinping, the president of China and the head of the Chinese Communist Party, has made it very clear that he believes, at least in China should be run a certain way. That's obviously the country that he rules, and some will say, and I agree, in quite an authoritarian manner. He's also explicitly said in leaked documents that he believes a lot of things that in the West that we hold to be sacred. He thinks they're a threat to the Chinese model. So I'll give you an idea. He calls some of the things that are a threat to the Chinese model a separation of powers, an independent judiciary, universal human rights, civil society, total privatization, and freedom of the press. He has said in documents within the CCP that he believed these are not consistent with how the country of China is to be ruled or governed, which, listen, there are arguments to be made. Sure, Western democracy and liberal democracy is not for every country, which is China's history is it's a very large landmass, and the best way in many ways to control that type of landmass is to have a kind of an authoritarian leadership that trickles down, and you kind of let different parts of the country do their thing, but under kind of one direction. So what's your thoughts on me framing it as I believe China as an ideological rival? This is not controversial, right?
Yeah, not really. Jack, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I think it's an entirely different political system, right? It's completely different system of governance. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay, so there's the first part of the ban TikTok argument. The second part is stuff that we've talked about on this episode. China itself doesn't allow Western social networks or Western competing products, right? And my argument is not, hey, we should do, or Western nations should do a tit for tat, because the whole point of Western nations is that you kind of allow this competition and the free market to run. Having said that, there are certainly limits, right? Is like, for example, in the United States, there are anti-dumping rules. And I'll give you a very salient example. China can't just create like solar panels or shoes and just sell them into the market at below cost, right? Which is what they actually did with solar panels. Like they create solar panels at a very low cost because some people say slave labor, and then they'd flood the market, the United States market, with those solar panels. And now everybody in the United States that runs a solar panel business, how are you going to compete against something that is selling at a loss, right? So there are limits to quote unquote the free market.
How is that? How is that controlled?
Oh, they're anti-dumping rules. They'll be like, within the country, I can't speak to each individual product line, but like they make certain like assessments on like, okay,
like
clearly
exports or something that are coming in at a certain value.
Exactly.
Right.
Or they'll force a duty onto that import to make it up to a certain level that's competitive. Like if you're trying to sell a solar panel, which is 99% cheaper, people will be like, okay, this is funny business, right?
Well, yeah. This is like, not to interrupt your very
this is great
sequential case here, but the idea of that translated into digital product or attention is another interesting angle on it, right? It's like you're going to allow that arbitrage to exist, which is what TikTok does.
Exactly, right? It's a form of digital arbitrage, and we've talked here a lot that if we believe that attention is the most scarce and honestly the most important asset in the 21st century, because it is truly limited, right? It's the only truly scarce asset. Then exactly to your point, Jack, it's like the physical products aren't even the most important things. It is the ideas. And as we established, China is ideologically, against a lot of Western values. So you have a country that has historically in trade, physical trade, not played necessarily fair, and now they have the dominant attention-grabbing app. So that's layer number 2. Layer number 1 is ideological. Layer number 2 is they already don't really play on a level playing field, right? Facebook, Google, Twitter, not allowed in China.
And the other point, or the other thing to include in framing this is the assumption is that there is state-level access or influence to TikTok.
This is exactly the next level. It's like, so if you grant the first 2 parts, then the person might say to me, okay, Trung, like whatever. Like, okay, Trung, nice conspiracy theories. Like, what's the third part? Jack just nailed it. It's like, okay, does the Chinese Communist Party have influence and sway over TikTok? I think at this point, if anyone is looking at China and what happened to the Chinese tech industry over the past 2 years, and they would say that the Chinese Communist Party has no sway, they're living in it. We can't have a conversation, right? Overnight, Xi Jinping about 18 months ago destroyed the Chinese tech industry. He wiped $1 trillion evaluation, and if you're asking why would he do that to his economy, it's because he wants tighter control over what could be potential rivals. Like what happened to Jack Ma, we all saw, right? One of the most vocal, successful entrepreneurs on the planet disappeared off the face of the earth. He's still around. I think he's formally given up control of Alibaba, but he was seen as a rival, potential rival, right? Like, because he controlled a very important a tech platform, and he was extremely rich. Same thing's happening with the CEO of ByteDance, Zhang Yiming. He has actually left the CEO position, and prior to founding TikTok, he had done stuff in China. He didn't actually found TikTok. They acquired Musical.ly in 2016, which was, did you guys ever use Musical.ly?
I think once or twice. Was it, the name rings a bell, was it to make videos?
Lip sync. Yeah, lip sync videos.
It was what basically became TikTok, right? Like
Exactly.
the version of TikTok we now know. Yeah, I'd used it a little bit. I remember one of my friends was working there actually. So
worked at Musical.ly.
Yeah. I think he was the head of marketing or something. And then he ended up going to CMO, and then he went to TikTok after.
I hope he's not listening to this. No.
No, but he's German guy, real good dude. But yeah, I remember it was kind of the hot shit for a minute. Like I remember even like a lot of the social media like agencies and stuff started talking about it as like, oh, you need to start creating stuff on here. All the kids are using it. And then TikTok, it merged basically with TikTok, I think. And then, it kind of took over.
Yeah, well, I'll give you a little preamble of that. I know Jack had a quick comment, so I'll talk about ByteDance. This is the Chinese parent company to TikTok. They own two apps. I'm going to butcher this name, which probably hurts my argument for banning TikTok. But they had an app called Toy Toy, which is like an AI-generated news app, which is directly related to what Bilal said at the top. We're going to be talking about the Instagram founders basically launching TikTok for text in an app called Artifact. But Artifact was basically in China called Tao Tiao, and it used AI to recommend content, which probably sounds familiar to TikTok, right? TikTok's using AI to recommend videos. But the interesting thing about this news app was Xi Jinping was unhappy with some of the content that was being fed through the app. He forced the CEO of ByteDance to fix the algo and apologize to the country. So this is an idea of what's already happening with information apps in China. And then the other thing I'd add to Jack's initial question is like, what is the CCP's control over these tech companies? The CCP has what is called a golden share. They invest a nominal amount of money into these companies at a way below market valuation. They get 1% of the company. In return for that 1% and the money they give, or in addition to the 1%, they get content moderation. They control the content moderation, and they get a seat on the board. So this has happened with WeChat, and it's happened with TikTok. So this is layer 3. On top of ideology, on top of the fact that China doesn't have a fair information flow happening within its tech and information industries, there's the fact that CCP directly controls these apps. So, I mean, that's my 3-pronged rationale for why it should be banned. And it's a threat because they're not ideologically aligned, and they can use this incredibly powerful algorithm to, who knows what's going on, right? It's like in the past they've blunted news about Tiananmen Square on TikTok because the Chinese government doesn't want to talk about Tiananmen Square, and they've pushed other kind of quote unquote hashtags and trends that are in their favor, pro-China, and suppress things that are anti-China. And then on top of that, they've used within TikTok, they've used data on Western journalists and tried to track down Western journalists that have written articles that are critical of TikTok. So they are abusing the data, but the data is secondary to me. The number one thing here is about ideology and information flow. And I think you can't trust a black box algorithm controlled by the Chinese Communist Party to run amok in Western nations. That's the argument.
Trung, I think the good points, first of all. I probably am more on your side than the other side on this, but just to try to play devil's advocate, I think that last thing you said there about we can't trust a black box, and then the second part was controlled by a Chinese government. Is that a key part, the second part? Because a lot of the algorithms are already a black box, right? Like all of the social algorithms are. So is it really just the second part?
We're waiting outside the...
yeah. He said we'll be waiting outside the journalist door or something like that.
No, the algorithm designer. He said, who designs
the designer,
this stuff?
Yeah.
Which is a great question.
No, I agree. Both sides.
No, that's a good point.
No, that's a great question. That's a great devil's advocate question. I actually wrote this in my the Substack that I wrote on TikTok. I'm like, this is the resolution. I think Western states should block it. until the time of owner. But to your point though, in the hands of the non-Chinese owner, it's still a black box which sucks an hour and a half of time a day and is honestly probably not great for like a childhood development, because it is an absolutely monster time suck, right? And the information that's being fed through that app, it's like anything. It's like, listen, people binge on Netflix, watch 4 hours of TV a day. Like, people are constantly distracted. It's just that as we've discussed, the app design is actually, it's the apex. It's like nothing has been this good to keep you hooked. I mean, I don't use it like you do. Bilal, tell me how good of an app it is.
If they were an American company and they were just really good at sucking you in, the same way Instagram was better than Facebook at doing that, you could argue that other social networks have been good. YouTube in its own way for video. Like, we wouldn't be saying, okay, well, they're really good at this and then people are spending hours a day on it. We're really saying it because the Chinese, I guess.
Right, because of the layer, you're 100% right. And it's because of the layer one thing, right? It's like, if we grant that information flows and attention are the number one scarce asset, I don't believe that it should be in the hands of an antagonistic ideological regime. That's how I would frame it. But to answer your point directly, when we had Jordan Schneider on, China expert at China Talk, he's like, yeah, listen, the people that made TikTok should be rewarded financially for creating actually a great product, right? So if they were to sell this in the open marketplace, they will get paid out for it. It looks like it's unlikely that they'll get what the quote unquote market would be, because it's going to be sold under duress. But no, you're right. It is clouded by the fact that, you know, China has this Communist Party has this golden share. I don't want to take away from the apps. It's really good at what it does, right? But yeah, the bottom layer is what I'm talking about.
Trung, I think I agree. So I think that's good to separate the two. And then just to add to that, we were talking about the negative, not just the negative effects on dopamine and, like, you know, how we all sucked in being addicted to it, but also the types of content. So again, I don't know if this is true or if it's just a random rumor that stems from wherever. But I've heard that the content algorithm for China is different to the US. And again, this could be completely made up, so it's not verified. But for example, what kids would see there might veer towards more quote unquote positive stuff like education and stuff that would help them with learning. Whereas here we're getting, you know, like the 3 different mega dopamine sucking things, attention grabbing things that you've talked about.
Dancing, Family Guy, and
exactly.
Subway Surfers.
With a hip hop beat on top. So
yeah.
Do you know, first of all, have you heard of that before? Do you know if that's true?
So that claim was made by a number of people, but I think the most famous one that I think we've talked about was from Tristan Harris, former Google guy, right? He's like the evangelist that wants to get people off of social media, but he was on 60 Minutes.
Oh, he's the guy that did that Netflix documentary or something, right?
Yeah, he was talking about specifically the app, the TikTok is not in China. China has an app called Douyin from ByteDance also. That's their version of TikTok. And Tristan Harris was making the point that the Douyin app, to what Bilal said, was showing like the quote unquote spinach version of social media content. Whereas like Americans are getting like the McDonald's TikTok, like 10 nuggets, 3 Big Macs, like 2
that
junior
chicken
chickens.
Slaps, as we talked about last week. Yeah,
exactly. They're getting that version. Right. But yeah, do I think it's true? I think it's 100% true. And it goes back to something that's well documented, which isn't a rumor, which is that the CEO of ByteDance a couple of years ago had to apologize to the country and to the Communist Party for feeding stuff that was quote unquote bad and negative down their newspaper app. So yeah, that's the case I'd make. And I think I'd add one thing, or add a couple of things just to make it newsworthy, or why we're even bringing it up today, is because legislation has been brought forth, like bipartisan legislation, to ban TikTok some capacity. Obviously, Donald Trump famously put an executive order to ban it, and they tried to force a sale to Oracle and Walmart, which is kind of hilarious. And now, and TikTok now is in discussions with the U.S. government to have, they're going to run the U.S. data in the U.S. Oracle is going to quote unquote audit the algorithm. They say it's going to cost them $1.5 billion to allow that to happen. But even with like the changes they're trying to make, they've said that still the ByteDance and the Chinese Communist Party is going to have ultimate final say on decision making at the TikTok level. And it sounds like Senator Josh Hawley, Republican, but quite a hawkish Republican, has written some bill or put forward one to ban TikTok. You mentioned it, Bilal. I think by the end of the year, something will happen. It'll be a forced sale or we'll get banned. And when people ask, well, how would you ban something? It's actually not that hard, and it speaks actually to a problem with the internet in general. The
open internet? The fact you could just ban a whole app? Yeah.
You could ban a whole app just by Google Play Store and iOS App Store, right? It's they could just stop it from happening.
They make it illegal, and they would say, get it off, which makes sense. Yeah.
It's there's 2 choke points, right? It's not that difficult. I mean, it's difficult from probably a legal side. It will get challenged. And the last thing I'll add is this. There's actually a rule in the Constitution. It's called the Berman Amendment. It was done during the Cold War, and it's actually done during the Cold War for the opposite reason. It didn't want to ban the flow of information because the U.S. was feeding propaganda to other countries, right? It was feeding propaganda to Cuba. So the Berman Amendment basically meant that there's restrictions about banning information between adversarial nations. So ironically, something that may stop an outright ban of this happening was an amendment made during the Cold War for similar reasons. But that's TLDR.
That's great. And so, Trung, the other thing I was going to ask is, we were separating the negative effects of social media and which I would apply to all the social media apps, to be honest.
Not just TikTok.
And I would also say on the flip side, we are choosing to watch what we enjoy, and that's going to bring us on to the second topic in a little while on Twitter's algorithm change. And so, Jack, what was I think you had a Joe Biden quote for this one as well about what we end up watching. What was it from last week?
No, it's the same quote from last week, which was, don't tell me what you care about. Show me your bank account and I'll tell you what you care about.
Show me your TikTok feed and I'll tell you what you actually care about. Yeah, that's scary.
It's the same. I mean, maybe even a more accurate thing, right? It's because some people, you spend money on things you don't want to spend money on, but the attention...
Yeah, attention's
the
free.
relationship between the attention is you don't spend a millisecond looking at something you don't want to look at, and that feedback loop creates, which is what I was going to say as well, is I don't know how much I buy the benevolent social media network creator that's feeding scientific education to people. I agree that has to be a government phenomenon to say you have to stop giving people what they want. Because if you, I think, let people alone with an app like that, you're always going to get a similar result. It's going to be the most entertaining, the funniest, the lewdest in a lot of cases, right? If you look at internet data in aggregate, what are people spending their time looking at?
25%. We know. We're not going to say it. We're not going to say the P word.
We're not going to
say the P word that rhymes with corn.
You know it when you see it. What was that from?
The Supreme Court justice. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you what pornography is, but I'll tell you. You know when you see it. Actually, Bilal, I actually do want to address your point because Jack brought something great point. We're already seeing with the Twitter files the amount of FBI interference into Twitter, right? And into Facebook and YouTube. Listen, it's not like the United States is or Western societies don't have the thumb of the government pressing on the social media scales. It's just, at a minimum, these are elected officials by the citizens of the United States, right? Or the citizens of Canada. TikTok, again, is a Chinese-run app by a single-party state with very explicitly, and I guess in some ways, because of how explicit it is maybe some could argue it's less malignant than the FBI secretly getting its claws into Twitter. But I don't agree. We've talked about it. I'm just glad I had a chance to tease out the point that I made a couple months ago, and we all had a good laugh about.
No, I think that makes sense. Well, the last question I was going to ask you on that, Trung, was we were separating the negative effects and China, essentially. So I guess the logical step from there is, why stop at TikTok? What makes TikTok so special compared to all the other Chinese companies that could also be influencing things in a negative way?
That's a great question. I think you can make a similar argument for WeChat, actually. Because I read something, actually it might have been either Times or a Post opinion piece. There's if you actually think about WeChat, it's actually a bigger spread of Chinese propaganda because of like every Chinese citizen uses WeChat, even the ones living abroad, right? And that's their main communication channel. But that is a great question. It is, which is why I'll just hedge by saying all this. When you go down this path, exactly because of the question you asked, it's not a path you should go down, like you should choose to go down, like just willy-nilly, right? It's like, is this thing enough of a threat where you're opening this can of worms where you're kind of like banning different types of communication mediums? And yeah, you're right, it could totally get ugly. Like what if it looks like at Japan? What if America looks at Japan and they use Rakuten there? It's like, oh yeah, we don't like this app, right? You're right, it is. I think TikTok is that enough of a threat. And because it is the apex predator for attention, it's like, it has to be treated as that. That's how I'd frame it. It sounds like a bit of a cop-out, but that's how I
think it's a fair... And I guess, like you said, they're top of the game right now, so that's why it's become significant enough that it's impacting culture, it's impacting people's behavior and like stuff like that. So it makes a big difference. Yeah, go on.
One thing I was going to say in the middle that I forgot about until now was basically we can connect these 2 points and then maybe that will help us go into the next topic. But this idea that we're talking about with Soren's, take these apps and make a little tweak to them and like ride on the culture a little bit, is how TikTok took off and continues to grow.
Right.
Because you're riding on music for the most part, right? Where it's like you have this collective bug in people's heads that you can attach new messages to, and it already has like this mimetic distribution. And I feel like that's the real massive advantage that they have. And I don't know how the licensing or any of that stuff works. Maybe that's another function of it being Chinese. Like they don't give a shit about the music licensing or anything. Like if you go on Instagram and search for a song to tag on your reel or whatever, you get like 4 results of probably artists that have signed dog shit deals with Meta or something, right? And their ability to tag on to these like assets that are already in people's heads, to me, that's how the like mega viral component is achieved and sustained. And that's like I don't know, we need somebody, maybe we can get our boy Dan Runcie on, talk about like how the licensing works in that scenario. But the like freedom at that level, I think it does end up trickling back to the artists. I got a few friends who work in that industry, and it's like, if your song can't break out on TikTok, forget it. Just you don't even bother.
They're making it for that, basically. Like, even if you look at the big artists like Drake, and I mean, I think I can't remember the album it was a few years ago where they said it was like the TikTok album where you could tell he'd made, or at least a song.
What's that dance song called? Was
it one dance? There was a few where
he did,
you could tell from the music
dance
video he was doing the ridiculous dancing.
Yeah.
It was very memeable. And then there were other ones where it was just made for a dance, like I can't remember the name of it now, but it was like a TikTok dance, because that was originally when TikTok really popped off. It was everything on there was just people doing dances, but now it's like way more. Like people are doing like 5 best personal finance hacks and all this random stuff, or gym TikTok, whatever. And but you've still got the music layer across the board, right? Because it's just more entertaining and more engaging. I did have another point I want to bring up, but did you guys finish that point before I move on to...
Is it TikTok related?
It's related to this. Well, it's kind of a bigger question around like...
I'll just drop a couple thoughts and give some credit. It's like 3 really good ones to read on this, and we'll throw in the show notes. Is Gurwinder wrote something, a great title. He wrote, TikTok is a Chinese super weapon. A weapon of mass distraction is what he called it. Not bad, right? Ben Thompson obviously has written widely on TikTok and his case for banning it. And he lives in Taiwan, so he has a pretty close view on it. And our boy Jordan Schneider, who was on here a month and a bit ago. The last thing I'll add on that is, that's it. We'll link those. Those are all great resources. And if people want to push back on Trung T Fan, I get it. We'll have a follow-up.
At him on Twitter. Well, I guess the bigger question I wanted to ask you guys was, I guess it's more of a philosophical question around the role of governments or companies and how much we should be pushing people to positive things versus letting the market decide, and that kind of sliding scale. And the example I always give, and this is like a very Google specific one, but it's kind of a funny one. Did we ever talk about the M&M's thing at Google? Or have you heard about this before?
Oh, the white shoes, it just happened, right? Or is it?
No, this is like from ages ago, but essentially it's the idea of when you design your space in your room, let's say your bedroom, you want to put positive stuff. Like, for example, I put Kindle next to my bed because I want to read more. I'll put my multivitamin there, and I'll put like stuff that I don't want around my phone. I might put in another room at night, because even though you can say, oh, just have self-control and discipline, like most humans don't have that, right? So it's better just to make it easy for yourself. Similarly, with Google, it's kind of a fun one. In the Google mini kitchens, they would have like snacks and stuff. So they were peanut M&Ms, my favorite. And they would just be in these kind of jars where you'd basically turn it and you could see all the M&Ms, and you'd put your bowl there and it would just come flying out like a waterfall of M&Ms.
Zero interest. 0%
Zero interest, exactly. Yeah, zero interest behavior.
That's an zero interest phenomenon.
100%. Yeah,
M&M
so this
fountains, yeah.
Yeah, but just think about that, just design-wise. Like you're stressed or whatever, or you're bored, and you go over, you just hit it, and you're like, okay, now you're just going to give yourself a sugar high. You just smash it out your desk, and then you might want some more because it's addictive. So what the Google team did, the people who designed the offices, they said, all right, we want to give people the option for M&Ms, ice cream, stuff they like, but we want to encourage healthy behaviors. So they basically replaced those clear water fountain things with like just opaque jars, and they would put it like one level higher. And so it's just a minor difference, but you'd have to go there and lift it up and then pour it in and really choose that I want to have these. And that alone reduced the consumption of M&Ms by 60%. They measured it because they had to replenish the M&Ms or whatever. And there's actually, I was just Googling while we were talking, there's a Harvard Business Review case study on this, which is quite funny.
What, on the M&Ms?
Yeah, with the M&Ms. I'll send it to you. That sounds like a
thread.
Sounds like a trunk thread, exactly. But yeah, that's kind of just a fun little story to share. But I remember I would reference this all the time within like my team and stuff, beyond like the M&M, just like when you're trying to encourage yourself to do good things, like make it easy for yourself. But I guess the question is, that's on a company level, and that's for the employees who they're actually feeding, and they're giving it for free to the employees. But what is the role of a government or a company as it relates to users and citizens? Like, should we be actually encouraging people to eat healthier food, consume less equivalent of junk food in terms of social media? Like, where is that line for you guys?
Mm-hmm. The FDA.
You've been listening to that Andrew Schultz podcast.
Yeah, well, I think that is one of the biggest or the most obvious things of this, like, playing out in real world, right? Like the regulation of things that you physically consume, I think, is reasonably unanimous across the board, and regardless of your political beliefs. Like, should anybody be able to make drugs that claim to do X and sell them? Seems to me like it makes sense for that to go through a process of review. Should that process of review be transparent and well published and documented and all of that stuff? Yes. And I think where the line is when it gets to, this is a big theme of what we talk about here every week in some way, shape, or form, is like, is the digital economy real? Is the stuff you're consuming in your mind, like the things that's going into your retina and through your brain and influencing the way you think about the world, is that the same as ingesting a poisonous, pill of some description? Right? Most people would say no, but I mean, I think that in there's reasonably unchecked in a lot of regards, right? Like a Twitter or I don't know to the extent, I mean, Bilal, you've been in the bin at Google, so I don't know if maybe 70% of the shit that's going on the internet is like not fit for human consumption.
Listeners, can we tell the listeners what the bin is for the people who don't know?
Yeah, for people who don't know, I actually thankfully skipped it, but a lot of people, including Sheryl Sandberg, who's now was the head of Facebook for a long time, your first job at Google was to be in the approval bin. So you'd go in and you'd get a queue, and it would come on your screen. It'd be like approve ad, disapprove ad, or content for YouTube. That would be the case. And it was basically to teach people how the system works and policy. But it was kind of crazy. You got these Stanford grads thinking they're going to be doing some cool work, and then they're for 6 months you're just disproving
Dude,
ads.
I read the book about YouTube, and they're talking you're talking about the bin. They didn't call it the bin, but I mean, you guys will know this. Bilal knows for sure. They get like consultancies, right? They'll get Accenture to hire people in Latin America, Southeast Asia, spend 10 hours in the bin. We've talked about this before.
And
you get
YouTube's
PTSD.
crazy. Yeah.
Celia worked at an agency that did that. Like,
really?
I think they had P&G as a client, and they would just staff a team of people to watch the videos that P&G ads are appearing before or during.
That's like, crazy. Yeah. What, like on TV or on the internet?
No, on YouTube. On YouTube. So like
that's crazy, man. They just need to run a placement report there.
Next to this or that.
Got humans do it.
I mean,
guess they're verifying.
You gotta get those billable hours up allowed.
That's it. That's true.
Bro,
that's true.
It's so dark that we're laughing, but like because you can't not like you know how dark this stuff is. We don't have to talk about it.
The stuff that people would put on the internet. Yeah. I still think it's a minority of. I still think it is just a crazy. Like when you see it, you're
I don't think it is, man. I think it is. I think it's like the dark matter of the internet. I think a lot of the internet is really sick and twisted.
Well, a good barometer is like when and how would you let a kid go on the internet? Would you give your son unfettered access to the internet, Trung?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Well,
so
I don't
think
even
that's
just
about
give myself that. Let alone
I don't let
son,
him use YouTube. I go to Netflix because I know.
What about YouTube Kids? Have you ever tried that?
Man, it's like you probably know the history of YouTube Kids. They try to put the content all there. Just no one uses it. It's a habit thing.
I've heard. I know quite a lot of people who use it with their kids. Yeah. My nephew, my friends' kids, and it's like filtered, so they only put like very specific stuff on there. So
yeah, I think that there was like discussion of this in the Twitter acquisition when it was closing out. It's like have a mega safe mode, have a moderate mode, then have like sicko mode. Basically,
choose your algorithm.
Right, unfiltered madness. I don't know, man. It's like it's a very, very, very hard problem to solve, and that was a large part of the criticism that came with Elon taking over. Right? It's like consumer, social, and content moderation, and all that stuff is not an engineering problem in the same way that like sending something into space is an engineering problem.
Great segue
let me
into
answer Bilal's question directly. Like, I'll do super quickly. Is I think it's difficult. It's already clearly being done though, right? It's like certain forms of pornography, hate speech, and as we've seen, things that are not in the Overton window are being suppressed. Like you couldn't talk about COVID for like the first year of COVID. So do I think it's a problem? Yeah, I would not want to be in a world where you had a top-down deciding, and that's clearly quasi something we do have, and it's not specific to TikTok. What I appreciate about your questions around the TikTok thing is like, listen, there's a Chinese ideological angle, but then you also says like, well, the social media algorithm stuff, that is also just a social media algorithm problem, right? That's just a social media a content problem.
Yeah, I think you could also talk about the like nothing new under the sun angle where TV channels, radio, all of those things come from, starting as appealing to a tiny number of people and then just become this homogenous like narrative that can go out to 100 million people at a time. And it's difficult to imagine the forces that don't let or try and prevent, if you look at this from like a good nature's perspective, try and prevent like porn from being on the TV at 9 o'clock in the morning, right?
Oh no, that's possible.
No, I'm saying like that I don't think anybody disagrees with something that is, well, obviously there are people, but broadly people don't disagree with the idea that something that has the potential to be broadcast to like almost every living person should have some degree of consensus about what it is we do and do not want to be a part of that. I don't think many sensible people would disagree with that statement, but if you do, let it go in the comments and we'll get into it.
We might have to shut the comments off of this one, boys.
Well, no, the other thing, Jack, you mentioned it earlier, but you were talking about kind of laws and rules around what you're allowed to consume, right? Like we can all go and buy a Snickers from the store, and like eat an ice cream at 2 a.m. or 9 a.m. if you wanted to. So that's fine, but you can't just go buy illegal drugs in most places, right? So there are laws where they say that actually we think society shouldn't have XYZ, so we're going to create a law around that. And obviously there's a whole debate around that too.
Yeah.
But
I wasn't even talking about necessarily illegal things. I was talking more about like extremely dangerous, like poisonous things. And that your definition of poison could be like recreational drugs, but it also could be like, you know, somebody that's claiming to sell fish oil and they're putting like, you know, engine oil in capsules and selling it to people and killing them.
Which legit happened. In India and Vietnam, like they'll sell alcohol, which is literally just rubbing alcohol, right? And that shit will kill you.
Insane. Yeah, like I don't think the majority of people want to live or have their children grow up in a world where there's just like no form of consensus around what can be sold and screened and, you know, consumed en masse, because it doesn't get us anywhere good to take all the rails off that, in my opinion. Yeah,
I agree. And so I guess the point I was coming to was that is how we consume, you know, physical food, drink, whatever. And then the next step from there is, okay, well, the content we're taking in, people use this term like the content diet, essentially, the way you feed your body. Do you feed it with
Balaji.
Junk food? Yeah, exactly. He says that as well. So yeah, it's that idea of, again, you should, in my opinion, you give people like you can watch reality TV all day if you choose to, and you're not going to make that illegal because it's bad for your brain. And not everyone wants to watch a Nat Geo documentary or philosophical talk. But at some point, there might be a point where you say we want to encourage certain things versus others. And I think the problem with that, from the jump from food to media, is free speech, and then you don't want to like be you know, limiting access to certain stuff. So yeah, that could be a whole discussion in itself, but that's kind of how I see it. As I think we already are doing that to a certain extent. Like you said, Jack, like there's a watershed or whatever, you can only show adult TV after a certain time, or I'm assuming it's still like that. I don't have TV anymore, so but yeah, growing up you'd be like, oh, everyone's staying up till 10 or whatever it was, because that was the time.
Man, you know what, you start hitting channel 375 at around 2 a.m. there's gonna be some wild stuff. Red Shoe Diaries.
there we go that's what I'm saying. So anyway, that was really interesting. I think we could probably move on. This related topic, Twitter's algorithm, and we're going to talk about Kevin Systrom's app Artifact, TikTok for text. Maybe we'll come on to that in a second, but I think, Jack, you mentioned this Twitter thing. I guess there's been a lot of people talking about it on Twitter, ironically as well, just saying like the feed, they're noticing a difference, and I've seen it too. I'm just seeing a lot of people's stuff that I'm not following more than before. Obviously, you would get exposed to some people where they were retweeted or liked and stuff like that, but now like that whole like feed to me is basically a lot of kind of those hacky things that I don't actually want to see. So I'm catching myself really going to the following tab a lot more, because the quality of posts there for me are at least generally much better, because I know who those people are. What about you guys? Have you noticed it, and anything else on that?
The most I've noticed is most of the tweets in the following tab for me are people complaining about this.
Yeah. So people that you actually know are not liking it too. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, they're trying to TikTok it, right? They're clearly trying to TikTok it. It's like they want it to be an interest, like a truly interest-based graph. Whereas we talked about earlier, it's like Facebook, Instagram follower graphs, right? I'm sure we'll talk about it more with Artifact. But
and even Instagram is kind of going that way too, right? Going the discover, this might be interesting, try this, follow this person, do this. It just makes it's crazy actually how long it's taken to get here, honestly. The idea that the average user of a social media platform is not creating that much value, in inverted commas, like from the top down perspective of time on platform. So for us, I think we're in a hyper niche of creation and publishing and all of this stuff. And I don't think there's although that's hyper niche, there's not a shortage of people like us that are making stuff. So the focus for a consumer app is to make it better for consumers. And as long as like the dopamine reward exists for creators, it's like what Sailor was saying. There's always going to be someone who's willing to work harder than you for a shitter reward, right? For forever and ever and ever and ever.
Wrong. You think you can go and do something else? Wrong. Somebody with less to lose, smarter than you, willing to work 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
No, you're right. I'll add this. It's definitely trying to get TikTokified, but the algo is just not there. And it's something we talked about.
That's the key
about
point.
in the article.
Yeah. It's like the idea makes sense. Like, show me stuff I'm interested in. But to me, the text, and this is going to bring us to Artifact in a second, text, which is generally what you're seeing on Twitter, right? Still, you see some images and videos, but like comparing that to a dynamic, like to me, like a 4D experience compared to Twitter tweet on TikTok.
People like video like that. I mean, people, like that's just, this is not controversial. Text is less good than images. That's why Instagram's so much bigger than Twitter. And then video is less good than better than images, because it's just you, like Bilal
Sight,
says,
sound, emotion. You see
sight,
all
sound,
three
motion,
things.
and that's why TikTok, I think, and I know that short form video is taken over. That's why it's quite dangerous in terms of the ability to suck and hold you, right, and manipulate your brain. It's because, man, dude,
Trunks back on the train.
I'm back on it, man. I'm back on it. I'm just like.
Well, another thing is like the tightness of the feedback loop of the full screen thing too, which is like a weird tiny nuance that on a Twitter feed you can't quite, I would imagine, I wouldn't imagine you get as tight a feedback of like this person read this tweet for longer than they read the other tweet, right? You can approximate it probably based on how they're scrolling and stuff, but TikTok down to the millisecond, this is where this video turned people off. This is exactly where people lost interest. You could do that. You can't do that with a sentence on Twitter.
Well, it's not only just a sentence. You nailed it, Jack. It's called an algorithm-friendly design. Good point. Because in a tweet and on your phone, you see 3 or 4 tweets at once. How is Twitter supposed to know which one you're looking at for how long, what you like? But dude, you nailed it. TikTok is one video, right? Everything that happens on that video is telling them whether or not you hate it.
And it's like the number of actual, if you like, maybe you go into the physical feedback, like the amount of times you touch TikTok versus Twitter is crazy, right? It's like you're like the relationship between user and platform is so tight, and there's so much feedback happening versus like on Twitter it's kind of like boom.
It's a more of a passive scroll. Well, Jack, that's a really good point about the video versus text though, because if you think on Twitter, like you said, we're reading at different speeds. Like you can kind of estimate roughly like how far they got into the tweet, but it's not the same as someone was listening to someone speaking, or they got to a certain frame and everyone drops off, right? Like they just know way better like on that platform. And I also think, and this is without actually knowing how it works, it feels very much like a hacked quick version that someone just said, oh, well, here's a few variables, time spent on tweet and likes and whatever, like a few different engagement points, and the ones who have the highest show them most to people. And what we know about Twitter is, sorry about that horn, there's the types of content that we've been seeing for the last few years, like those annoying template threads, right? Like, I'm not saying Trung does actual original good writing on there, but the one where you literally know they're using like one of these platforms that write a template for you and you fill in the blanks and you go on Wikipedia and you copy it over or whatever. Like that sort of stuff, in my opinion, is just not great content, but it works. It's like it is a hack for that platform, and you get enough people liking it that it shows to more people, and then it just reinforces that same thing. It doesn't make it the best content. It just makes it the one that is being it games the platform the best.
And maybe hacking that from the perspective of the follower graph is different than the interest graph. Right? That's
true.
Like the first 30 seconds, if you've like curated you got your cult ready to receive it, right? And then it just gets like reaches the activation point. But if that same tweet goes out into like the proper, like a bigger pool, the ether, and captures like a different amount of attention, but over a broader thing, then there's more incentive to amplify that to the world, right? Like the mental model shit again is like stuff that resonates maybe in this like niche of a niche, but the like dumb observation about Thanksgiving is going up to like 5 million likes.
Yeah, completely.
No, I just want. I think Jack's framing of like going to different pools is something I actually noticed. Is the tweets are much spikier now. When they go viral hard. It's because it's getting fed into the For You pool,
which is big, like TikTok.
Exactly.
Parallel,
Anybody can go viral. I mean,
and that's another. I think that was another growth loop for TikTok, right? Where you get the 1 million. You get 1 million views on a video, and you're like, "Shit,
You got to keep going.
I'm gonna be, I'm the next Jimmy Fallon or whatever people think. I don't know." And then they're back on
Jimmy
that.
Fallon.
Yo, you know what we should have done for meme of the week? Actually, I'm pulling it up. I think because Jack brought up Jimmy Fallon, I have to do it. It was the 1 year anniversary.
The Paris Hilton thing.
Oh my god! So it was the 1 year anniversary.
Is this where she's talking about Bored Apes? They're both talking about Bored Apes.
You
Oh
guys
my
remember
god.
when
like
she was
simulation.
So, you know,
level.
this is a
that's
good
all, yeah.
pivot. We should pivot from this to the Instagram guys, because this is just. You guys sent this tweet, right? You did.
I think I shared in our group chat, or maybe Jack
For
did
the
as well.
listeners,
Incredible.
somebody tweeted out exactly 1 year ago was when Jimmy Fallon and Paris Hilton were showing off their Bored Ape pictures, and then a guy named Branson Reese just wrote, "This is Shakespearean." He wrote, in regards to the video of Jimmy Fallon and Paris Hilton, he writes, "This was so beautiful. The perfect expression of the barren, windswept void at the heart of the whole thing. A grift without an ounce of style or even audacity. The kind of scam a calculator would invent. No two organisms has ever had worse chemistry than this." Dude, how funny was that, man? That was
Unreal.
incredible.
That video was bad. Yeah, the
Video's
video as
unreal.
well, where she's like, "Oh, this is my one," and he's like, "Yeah,
Oh,
my
nice
manager."
glasses.
yeah, nice glasses. He's wearing a shirt like I like to wear. It's like very. Oh my god. Yeah, that was a tough watch, man. That was a tough watch. All right, good transition, boys. Good chat on all the social stuff. Let's keep it going. Artifact. Our boy Kevin Systrom and Mark Krieger. Am I saying that correctly,
Mike Krieger?
Trung?
Is it Mark or
Krieger,
Mike?
Yeah, Kevin and Mike. Let's keep it to that. They have a new app coming out, or is already out, called Artifact, and it's being called TikTok for Text. This is a perfect segue from TikTok and Twitter we just spoke about.
Yep.
I also read what you shared with me earlier, and it said some people calling it the Google Reader Reborn as a mobile app, which is... That is incredible. That is
Okay,
a
well,
throwback.
can you tell? I never used Google, so I just want to shout out. This is from The Platformer by Casey Newton. He got the exclusive, not Trunk Fan. Trunk Fan
killing
did
it.
not get this exclusive. What can you tell us? Google. I never used Google Reader.
Yeah, Google Reader was just an RSS. Did you ever use it, Jack? Or anything like
not
that?
religiously, no,
It-
but I do
but-
remember.
Yeah, it was
being
basic.
about.
It was an RSS reader. So in the 2000s and then early 2010s, the way a lot of people would read blogs, you would subscribe to the RSS feed. So not via email. A lot of people still didn't use email. They would use an RSS feed, and so that was like people loved it. And when they shut it down, there was like outrage. Like people
Just
were really
another
upset.
Google product that like
Got
Wave,
shut
right?
down.
Wave was another popular
Yeah, but
one.
Wave didn't really. No one really used Wave. But
Okay,
this
okay.
one, like, I don't know how many people used it. Maybe it wasn't that much. But the people that used it loved it. And if you think about it, it's like where you kept all your curated list of reading. So it would be
It's like
just
an
the
actual
good stuff.
interest graph, right? Like
You
one.
opted in. Exactly. It wasn't like them trying to guess. It was like, oh, I want to stay up to date with these 17 blogs, and I'm gonna like have them all in one place. So I used it like all the time. In fact, when I first used Twitter, I had it set up where I would star it and it would automatically share onto my feed, especially the Arsenal days. That was on the Arsenal feed.
Oh yeah, the Arsenal
was that.
review.
Yeah, the tweet deck days. So anyway, that was what caught my attention in.
Well, let me
the
give
thing
you some of
shared.
the features that sound similar to that. So now it's open, but it's in beta. They're slowly waitlisting people. I think actually rapidly is what the word in the article is. But to your point, you can only post with a link. So it has to be some type of text that you read, and you have to link it. And right now you can choose to add turn on or turn off comments. So the question I have is this, and I want to throw it to Jack, because I know Jack has strong feelings about the Twitter network effects. I don't think this thing stands a chance, man. It's just like
DOA.
yeah, it's
my
just
opinion.
and listen, these guys are clearly monsters. They sold Instagram to Zuck for Billy in 2012. Instagram, they left in 2018 because of how Zuck and Facebook were monetizing. They're purists. They're software
Sounds like
purists.
they have too much of a moral compass to build a successful consumer social app. I mean, fair?
No, you're actually being serious, eh?
Yeah, I'm being deadly serious. Yeah.
No, but they also said that they will have their thumb on the content moderation of this app. It sounds
reminds me
cool,
of that,
man.
Like, what was it, Flipkart or something?
Flipboard.
Flipboard. My dad still uses that. I showed him once at Christmas, and he would just share me.
That thing's amazing
it was a
on
great
iPad,
app.
though, right?
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, I think they're great, but I don't think they have a shot at like scale network effect. It's
Definitely
like your
not.
dad. It's basically your dad wants to
Exactly.
keep up with like these 3 obscure publications and they pack them in. Yeah. So
I agree with what you're saying there, Trung, as well. Like, I think you never know with these guys. They have a track record, but you'd also, I think so much of what the success of Instagram was, like, it was a moment in time. They definitely created something great. It was better than what existed, but so much of it is a moment in time and like a wave behind you. And I know there were another like 200 people trying to do what they were doing. They were the ones that got it to work. So maybe they're just brilliant product people that will figure it out. Maybe that's the case. But I think with something like consumer social, it's really like the best minds will try it over and over again, and it might work once.
And it's time on app, right? The monetization strategy would be time on app, and the whole app is centered around the idea of getting you off the app.
Oh, because you got to read the art. Yeah. They'd have to have a publisher relationship, but we've seen how many of these have failed, right? Every time a big publisher is trying to do a relationship with one of these networks, it's just been a complete disaster.
What was it called? Quibi?
No, Quibi
was the
or
short
in the
form
text,
video,
it's like Facebook's cut a bunch of deals with publishers, right? Like actually Google did it too.
Hey, isn't
Accelerated
Substack
mobile?
doing like a discoverability thing and an app? That to me is more.
But that's within the newsletters, I think, which I think works
they
really
have
well.
Substack has its own app. Oh, dude, you're right, man. It's like Substack's already got this thing dead to rights, man.
Yeah,
It's
but
like,
how many people are using Substack app?
no, you're right.
Really
more
but I
than
think-
more than that. Like it's not starting from zero, is what I'm saying. Like
Right.
the one
Yeah,
thing
yeah,
I think
fair enough.
Substack does is like it self-selects.
He just said
long
Substack.
form.
That's what I was cracking up to. I thought,
I saw Bilal's face. Bilal had the face of Jack when I said, "Got me hard."
I was like, did I hear it wrong? And then I was like,
Substack.
Substack.
I was
And
looking
I
at
didn't want to
Bilal's
interrupt him, but I said it in my head.
Go ahead,
Definitely.
Jack. Sorry, man.
I was gonna say
Substack.
you already have like the distribution, the tentacles are in, right? They have like all of these authors that people have really, shout out Joe Biden quote, are paying to read at scale, right? So you could use that established network effect and all of that intent that's stored up. I'm not saying it's still going to be hard, right? It's still going to be hard for someone like Substack where they have an ecosystem that's all connected, presumably millions of readers. But you're basically trying to start that from scratch without having this like wall of value capture around the whole thing where you're introducing people to other streams of content that you have a upside interest in as the partner, publisher, curator, whatever else. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, that makes
I agree.
sense.
But maybe they got $1 billion. They got $1 billion. I don't know how much of that they got left. Maybe they're just going to run it with that. It's a charity.
Is that did they say how much they've raised for this?
I didn't see it in there.
didn't
Or
see
they
it.
also rich themselves, but
Yeah, they def rich. They're def Billy. They're probably Billies at this point. Yeah, I agree with Bilal's statement. Listen, these guys are product guys, but Instagram was a very specific thing in a specific time. It doesn't feel like a TikTok for text is what we want right now.
Also,
Is it-
I
you
feel
know-
like on TikTok you already sorry Jack,
No,
but
go.
on TikTok you already get. I feel like when everyone's like a TikTok for this, it's like unless
Just go to
TikTok's
TikTok.
getting banned,
People will just
TikTok
read
already has
books.
it.
Yeah.
They literally have. I literally see Trung's tweet showing up on my feed where it's not even your account. People have just pulled your thing, and it's like this one random fact, and like people are liking it
because
And-
my tweet survived the evolutionary process of social fitness and
Exactly. No, but all jokes aside, it's like they're like a lot of people who don't use TikTok just think of TikTok as what it was like a few years ago of like kids dancing on a screen. It's not like that at all. It's literally just addictive videos sometimes videos, sometimes people speaking over video, sometimes literally just a tweet where someone is green screening it or just speaking over it. So it already is that. But because of discoverability, it's just more addictive than everything else. So it's not to say it won't win. I would always bet on someone like Kevin Systrom doing something again in the future, but you could bet on them 10 times and it would work once or twice. That's just the law of the numbers.
But that's all that matters, right? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If you're actually an investor, but it's just like objectively from the outside, starting something like this every time is always
the thing
really
is,
difficult.
I'm like their target customer. Like, I love reading. You love reading articles.
Yeah.
Like, I have zero. I do not want to use this app. Like, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know if I want AI-powered recommendation. Maybe that's unfair because I already have a pretty good information flow. Maybe it's for people that's a level lower that haven't curated the information flow as much. Yeah, maybe I'm not representative of actually who they're going after.
I also think the name is not going to have much mimetic velocity, boys. Maybe one too many syllables in there.
Artifact.
You know? I guess Instagram is 3. Artifact, though, it gives you the... It gives you the academic, intellectual vibe, which again I think is going to be a hurdle. It's a hurdle. Yeah, but maybe that's the goal. We'll see.
That's interesting. What do you think of when you say artifact?
History. I think of what do you call it? Literally somebody, archaeologists.
Yeah, that's what.
Is that what you think of in your head, Frank?
Yeah,
I'm just curious, like visually.
Just like a guy dusting off like the dirt on the dinosaur bones.
Very the antithesis of Instagram, right? Which maybe they've been sitting meditating for 10 years, and that's probably the product of it.
They're like, look what happened at IG. Look at what we've wrought on this world.
Right. This is the redemption. Yeah, fair play.
Well, the name represents the merging of articles, facts, and artificial intelligence. That is just not doing it for me.
I also have to say another thing for me personally, and he might be a complete unicorn because people I've heard speak about him have said he is like one of those people. Once you've made like $1 billion or sold something for $1 billion, like to back that person again, to be hungry enough to like really see it through when it's not fully working, like those people are rare. Like when they do it, they're amazing, but a lot of the time it doesn't hit twice. But yeah, so I don't know. I'm not being a hater on him. I think he's probably a real talented guy, but just it doesn't seem like, I don't know if I'm going to especially download this right now, you know? So,
you're running onto a stacked field right now.
Yeah.
The attention Hunger Games are very, very hard to win.
Hunger Games.
Yeah,
exactly.
literally the attention. You're going to go in with the apex predator, TikTok for text. Like Bilal said, TikTok is a TikTok for text.
Is a TikTok
right?
for text. Exactly, yeah. Exactly. All right, boys. I think that was a good one. Anything else on Artifact before we wrap it up?
Nope. That was, I think, somehow, for a little inside baseball for the listeners, we're scrambling this morning. We weren't really sure what we were going to talk about, but then all these pieces kind of came together.
In the tank, if we wanted to keep going, we could, but maybe we could save that for next week, maybe.
Well, do you think Soren would want to come on?
I can ask him. I can ask him.
We could do that. Oh, there was also the brand stuff, but we can save that for another time.
Yeah, I think that was a tight hour, man. That was a tight hour.
Yeah, it was perfect. All right. Well, thanks again for being here. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you're smashing the like and subscribe button on YouTube. And just do us a favor, if you're still listening to this on Spotify or Apple, drop us a review. I think no one does this on Apple, but a decent number of people have done it on Spotify. It takes like 2 minutes. That's always helpful. And we will see you guys next week.
Peace.
Peace out, guys.